Sup, everybody? This is Karak with ACG, and welcome to another episode of ACG Unrated, where we take a look at titles that I didn't get a chance to review, but I still wanted to cover anyway. And today we're going to look at Oddworld Stranger's Wrath HD. This is out for the Switch today and later tomorrow, depending on where you are. What is Stranger's Wrath HD? Well, what this is a port of the original title that came out on the old Xbox, the very original Xbox from Microsoft. It was actually considered one of their better games, and while it didn't sell incredibly well according to the actual creators, it has ended up garnering sort of a cult following. This is a game that is along the side of the Oddworld series that are 2D platformers, except this is a first-person, third-person shooter with some action-adventure elements. So sit on down and let's begin. If you get a chance, I would love for you to subscribe or check out the Patreon. Those absolutely help the channel, especially in this era of demonetization. The first thing I want to talk about is the audio in the Switch version. Let's listen for a second. Now, you may have noticed, if you have a good ear, that there is some compression there in the cutscenes. This is something that I don't have a copy of the older game, but I do, of course, have this version, and thank you once again to the devs and publishers for doing that. However, there is some compression here in the cutscenes. This doesn't really play out in the normal game, but it's definitely noticeable in the cutscenes with some tinniness that you can actually hear on the high end. So be aware of that. It is noticeable. Stranger's Wrath tells the story of Stranger, one of the characters in the game world, and you're a bounty hunter. You go out and you do bounties for various different characters in the game world at the same time as sort of explaining the story of this character's not only life, but his genesis as well. As you go out and you take on these different bounties, you end up most of the time having to shoot your way through it. Now, one of the excellent parts about Stranger's Wrath is not only the setup of the story, which I feel has one of the more endearing characters in the Oddworld series, and somebody that's just a little bit easier to get behind, at least for me, because there was a ability to sort of translate yourself into the character Stranger that may not have worked as well in the Oddworld games. The Oddworld games themselves I absolutely adore, but a lot of times that 2D platform, it's a little bit harder sometimes to sort of put yourself in the eyes of them. It was more about playing a character. Here in Stranger's Wrath, you sort of get to jump in. And of course, the first thing everybody's going to notice is there is definitely a Clint Eastwood vibe going on here. There's many jokes about Clint Eastwood. There's just an overall styling of that, and you certainly do pick it up from Stranger himself. I really dug that. Now, this cutscene basically shows you taking out the first of the bounties as you start the story itself. We will be playing this docked, of course, and I'll discuss a little bit about the handheld performance at the end after I discover this. The first thing it's going to do is sort of give you the idea of what options you can choose for your movement. Now, the movement in Oddworld has always actually been one of those issues a lot of people talk about. It never felt entirely great on the original Xbox, and all the ports, at least for me personally, have felt a little bit janky. Here we do have some of the same overall feeling, but you can go in there and adjust that. Stranger, I just love his design. It's such an excellent design. I'm going to go ahead and do the tutorial here so you guys can see the various movements. Now, when it comes to the camera angle, a lot of people will feel that these are reversed, or they'll feel that there's just something a little bit off with them. You can go in there, you can adjust it to the old style control, which I would suggest you don't, and you can also adjust and reverse the camera angles themselves. That's something that I think a lot of people will want to probably jump in and do right away, especially if it feels just a little bit odd to them. You also notice in transitions, this does go to first person and then back out to third. It's just one of the weird things. One thing I'm instantly noticing here is there's a bit of weight to everything. Let me check. General. No. There we go. They're just sensitivities. I might change those in a little bit. A lot of times with a game like this, I want to jump into it. I want to play around with it a little bit first to verify if that's something that I want to change as we go on. So again, you've got your various flip options. Of course, that matters, especially because you're going to be going into the first-person mode for your shooting elements, which you'll see in a bit. These are the third-person elements, which are the more platforming type. Yeah, there's definitely a weight to him. This is something that it's really just an exact version of the original, so you'll definitely notice. Also, there are some frame rate hitches. I checked it out just for a moment in handheld, and I noticed that there was almost no frame rate hitches at all in handheld mode, but in docked mode, this has sort of cropped up. Yeah, you can definitely tell there's some stuttering when you turn around. We'll go ahead and check that out. All of these in this general tutorial area are just sort of showing you what you can do. Yeah, there's definitely some frame rate drop there. This is trying to hit 30, but I think we may need to see a little bit of optimization to see if that can possibly get upped a little bit. You have the ability to go third-person action, so you can do a spin, and I believe it's a headbutt, I can't remember, for your other attack, and then you can zoom in and go. Looking here at the options, interesting. Anti-aliasing, MSAA, none. FXA. Okay, so we'll switch it. So if people don't realize what those are different anti-aliasing options, obviously. It's very rare to see those available on the Switch. FXAA is a fairly fast, approximate kind of anti-aliasing that usually ends up adding a bit of blur, but some people like it. And then MSAA is a very heavy style of anti-aliasing. I'm surprised it's in here. There we go. And to heal, you press the X button to shake off damage. This I absolutely love. There's something so cool. It's just like Hulk smash, and you just start smashing around. So overall, let's see. Stranger spin around with his fist, knocking any enemies unconscious. Oh, got him. And you ghost bust him up. So the game allows you to not only take out enemies, both main and secondary, but you can also take them out and then bounty them, take their bounty in. The lesser characters you can just do instantly. The other, and you can take them in, and then you have the main characters that you can choose. Do you want to, there we go, do you want to kill them, or do you want to take them in? So you can sort of go ahead and choose. And here's the best part, the crossbow. The crossbow is great. The first-person moments in this game are something that will stick with me forever. Basically, what happens is you have live ammo. And the first one we're going to use here is the Chipmunk. I can't remember the name, Chip Punk. So what you do is you can shoot the different ammos, and they all do different things. And they're all alive and talk and chitter. It's absolutely great. Look at the animation on that. So we'll take, ooh, it's a little jittery there on the controls. And I'm assuming, yeah, that collapses. Boy, it's been a while since I played this. But that was the magic of the original game, was choosing those different ammos, and they do various different things, and you can sort of combo the enemies, but you can also use that ammo on all of the main bosses. We've seen that in a lot of games where you get a special power of some kind, and you won't really be able to use it on them. Looking at MSAA, I want to check the filtering here in front of us. You can see that blur. I just wanted to see if that changed when you change the anti-aliasing setting. Sometimes they're not necessarily always connected, but I figured, you know what, that's in here. Let's just look at none. To be honest, I can't. There's a little bit of a difference, but it's not incredibly noticeable. So I'm going to leave it at this to get a couple extra frames per second, if possible. Suck it. Oh, where is he? Everybody in the game has a very overpronounced presence when it comes to their attitude and the way they talk. You'll notice a lot of the outlaws have crazy names and stuff like that. It's very cool. So I'm sucking these guys up. What that'll do is give me capture dead, gives me a little bit of cash, and you can turn those bounties in later and go ahead and use those to then buy upgrades for Stranger as well as different items. A lot of people when the original game came out really didn't understand why it was sort of third person and first person at the time. And I have to admit, I end up playing most of the game first person. That's just the way it is. The animation there on that creature is perfect. I'm going to adjust the camera and its sensitivity just a little bit. It felt a little bit off. It's just a little bit twitchy. Again, this is the docked version. I'll play more and then give you my idea of how the actual handheld version works at the end of this video. So by pressing down on the right thumbstick, you can put the camera before or above or behind you and sort of decide from there. And guys, I'm going to go in here and I'm going to flip the camera Y axis I just feel like I'm a little bit more accustomed to that as we move forward. It does have gyroscopic controls, which I'll try out as well. So anyway, you hit that right stick, you can move in and out of the character, and you can sort of look around. One of the things you will notice is that, especially adjusting right and left, the speed is just much faster, really, no matter what, than looking up and down. It's always been a little bit of an issue for me with this game. And there's a lot of feeling of weight for him. Why is he doing? Oh, okay. Oh, yeah, you have to grab the rope here. There's a lot of feeling of weight on the character, and you have to become accustomed to that. Stranger, especially in the third-person viewpoint, really does control differently than the first-person viewpoint, and you really have to be accustomed to that, because it can feel quite odd, especially as later, let me suck him up, as later you end up having the ability to sprint. I think it unlocks fairly quickly, and when you're sprinting around, you're trying to control him in that third-person view, which unfortunately you can't sprint in the first-person view. You can feel a little off. And there we've got our spider ammo. These are so great. So these tie up the enemies. Again, they'll tie up the actual bosses as well. Now, they'll be able to bust out of them really quick, but it will give you that moment's respite that you may need at some different time so that you can sort of retreat or whatever. And right away, we're going to be seeing the stealth sections of Stranger's Wrath. This is something that I believe almost no one agrees on. Everybody you talk to has a different idea of the stealth in this game. And I would agree that really the stealth doesn't necessarily work incredibly well in this game. It's not always required. You can basically ignore it. And when it comes down to it, I wouldn't say it breaks the game, but it does make the game just a little bit wonky. So be aware that when you play it, it never really feels perfectly. Basically, the long grass allows you to be hidden from the enemies. It also hides your radar, and that's how you can tell you're in it. And you're able to attack characters, but it's just never really as tight as I think it should be. So let's see, using the chip punk, lure these enemies. So, and then what's it? Okay. I always forget this section. I always skip the tutorial normally and just figure these things out whenever I'm replaying this. So with this tutorial, what it's trying to do is inform you of how to use the chip punk. Now, the chip punk actually has a fairly large aggro state, if you want to call it that. It will call enemies from a long distance away. As you can see, they're loud. They make a lot of sound. And then I'm going to wrap him. Whoops, I missed. Wrap him up. Boom. I love it. And that's just one of multiple combinations you can do. And they're really organic combinations. They're not necessarily combos, A, B, B, A, like a virtual fighter or anything like that. But they allow for a freedom and a flexibility there on the gamer's part that is just really cool. And got him and wrapped him up. There's a lot of old effects that you'll notice in Stranger's Wrath. One of the first things you'll notice is that a lot of the time the radar will actually indicate which area the character is looking and the enemies are looking. That's a little unique. I wouldn't say it's completely unique, but it doesn't seem to be done as much now, where they don't really show you the vision cones unless, say, you get an upgrade or something. And you have these various different slots where now you can get the different creatures. Let's see, incapacitates a group of enemies. One thing I always have an issue with is the switch and going back and using those controls and the ZL and ZR button. I always mix those up. So you got one attracts, one incapacitates the enemies, and the other ties them up. And you will also get a generic ammo later on. One of the cool things in this game is you actually hunt your ammo. I love that part about the game. You get a generic ammo that's sort of an electrical ammo, and you use that to hunt the others. So, yep, knocked them out. Well, that was easy enough. And they're gone. In first person, press the L button down, or the L stick down, to punch an enemy. So again, I was talking about first person and third person. In third person, you've got a spin attack and a headbutt style attack. And in first person, you have that punch, which does allow you to take out things if you need to. I personally find that first person just works a lot better with this game. Also, you get to look at the animation on these creatures. The fuzzle can be used two ways, as a trap or fired directly on enemies. Think of them as a living mine with teeth. Awesome. Now, when it comes to graphics, I would say this is about where I would expect it to be. With the various different anti-aliasing solutions, you might get a little bit more sharpness here or there. I really do wish they sort of allowed you to get that FXAA with a bit more sharpening, but they don't seem to allow that, so you get a little blurring there. Let's see. Oh, shit, I can't go through this door. Oh, it's been so long. Enemies cannot swim. If they fall in the water, they will drown. Can't destroy the door. This is... Okay. Guess we just take them out from here. Ooh. So we're trying to basically lure these guys into the water. And as they flop around, maybe some will come into the water. I might shoot this. I might shoot the squirrel. Can I go over here? No. Okay. Really? I can't destroy this? That's interesting. Oh, one already drowned. I look at that animation on that creature. That is just so good. And like I said, they're consistently talking throughout the entire game. They're chittering, they're saying different things. It's so great. And especially when you get the Chip Punk himself. In particular, I think he's the one that majorly talks. The others just make sound effects, but he's always one-lining and just saying, stupid stuff. It's so great. So he's down. Now, you can continue to kill him if you have the electrical gun, but the electrical creature, but I don't. So I'm going to load this up. And sorry, you'll probably see me reload a couple times because the A and B button on the Switch are, switched. So that definitely becomes an issue as we go later on. Yeah, I love these guys. Is he dead? No, he's not dead. Oh, man, I can't remember how to kill these guys. It's been so long. Can I go? I guess I just... Oh, or he drowns on his own. One of the two. So when you release that creature, it basically waits, and then it'll attack the enemy when they get up. I had one sitting there. He got up, and it went and attacked him. It said outlaw be coming, so I need to shoot those there. Let's do this. Switch into first, and just plop some of these down. Yeah, the filtering is pretty bad in this game. Filtering being, if you look at the ground, very short distance out, it starts becoming really blurry, really noticeable. That's not necessarily unexpected, but it is something that you'll notice in the game. And originally, the Xbox didn't have the best filtering anyway, either. So it's not that surprising. And two of them are there, and two of them attacked him. I can't remember. There might be a certain number of these creatures that it can attack him at any time. Oh, man. There we go. That took a bit. It took longer than I thought. Suck him up and get that cash. Now, like I said, cash will get you upgrades and so forth, and you can actually swim. So other characters in the game can't. You can, so you're able to traverse. There's some puzzles that require swimming, or I guess I just call them location areas that you'll need to swim to get to. One of the things that I really liked about this game is, I think I missed, whatever. One of the things I really like about this game is when you're actually going about and doing your bounties, at the end of each boss, when you take them out, you usually almost always unlock a shortcut back to the town that you got the bounty from. You received a new critter, Zapfly. All right, so what the Zapfly is basically this is your basic attack. What it also does is if you don't fire it a bunch of times, it will charge up on its own. This is an unlimited attack, and this is what you use not only, well, to take out enemies, but you can also use it to open doors. One of the great things about this, like I said, is you hunt your actual ammo. So you'll see these critters sort of laying around and running around, and you'll actually have to shoot them and collect them. So what I did is I jumped forward a little bit so I can keep this video somewhat short and have you guys able to see the major city, or at least one of them. I might even jump forward to one or two other places. We'll see as we do this video. But basically, that was just me hunting them, which I'm sure will happen in the major part of the game itself. So I'll show you guys. So you stow up your weapons and you go in. Now, you'll notice a lot of different Oddworld style characters in this game, and there is a great deal of that in the narrative as well. You will certainly pick that up, and it tells a very, very good story, something that I think a lot of people sort of missed because, again, it wasn't one of those 2D games. So now I jump forward. We're in the actual main first town. One of the things you will notice is this: the game definitely shows its age. It shows its age just with the way the NPCs work. They occasionally stop and talk to one another, but there isn't a lot within the towns, and there's a very basic geometry that you'll certainly notice. Now, later on when you're attacking enemies, there's a bit of verticality that occurs. But in a title this old, you definitely do notice it. What I want you guys to do is be able to listen to some of the audio. So let's jump in here as I take a bounty.
Hey, welcome to the bounty store. Hey, you must be the guy that bagged blisters out by the forest.
Yeah, it's true, but I'm looking for Doc. I need him to fix a problem.
Well, Doc's up in his Mongo office, but he'll be back here soon. In the meantime, I'll cash out them outlaws you captured, and I got a few more for you.
And yes, it does not really have the greatest when it comes to vocal performances that there are out there. This is a game that still does harken back to those old days and the way the Oddworld voices work, and just sort of that high tinny and sort of altered voice that you get, especially with Stranger himself. It's very monotone, and you don't hear a lot of actual emotion going on with that character. It is sort of explained, but I don't want to get into the story there, but you definitely do pick up on it. So you go into these different characters and you go to different cities as well. And what you do is you start getting these bounties, as you saw here. They'll give you a location to go and do the bounty. And then you will also get a certain amount of money, not only for bringing the enemy in alive, but for killing them. And, well, enemies are worth more alive than they are dead. So you have to be aware of that. This is an older style game, so you don't see a lot of exploration or anything inside of any of these buildings. Be aware, you're definitely not going to notice that. One of the things I do like about the title is it is true that a lot of it doesn't hold up to today's titles, that polish that you see in today's titles. But for a title that was long ago, a title that was made this long ago, it was actually trying to do a couple things different, which I really liked, including the way that ammo worked and just the way in which you actually were being told the story through that third and first person camera. It wasn't always the greatest and it didn't always work, but it was something that somebody tried that was a little bit different. Again, not the only game that did that, but at least for these guys, I think the characters that they have in Oddworld mixed with that was something that, again, surprised a lot of people. This did garner very good reviews when it first came out. Oh, wait. Actually, I think he doesn't have anything. Yeah, he doesn't have anything until you take out the first one or two bounties. A lot of the bounties have effects in the game world, at least a little bit. They either move you forward, or here you notice you actually can't buy anything from the store. And so you have to go out and do that. But when it comes to the other things like the music, I actually think the music is very good. It is Western inspired, so be prepared for that. If you're not a big fan of that kind of music, this might not actually appeal to you. To me, it really worked, and I think it set a mood that was great. Oh, wait, what did he just say?
I know how to make a mean sandwich. Oh, ain't that the truth?
And I don't even know what that's about, but you do hear those kind of vocal lines as we get in all these games. So we're going to go ahead and go out, and we're going to end up taking on an outlaw. I may skip forward so I can talk about the docked performance as well. You get these bounties. You do a lot of them, actually. The game is a fairly good length. It's over 10 hours. It's one of those typical games, I think, that in this time frame sort of fit the exact expectations you had for the length of the title. What's he saying? Oh, you're going to hunt your own live ammo. This is one of the things you will notice with the game is whether it's the tutorial or whether it's the main game, one of the things it does is you can choose to do the tutorial or you can choose to play the main game, but they sort of repeat the tutorial in a way, if that makes sense. They may not say it exactly, but here, once again, they alert you need to hunt your ammo, which is something that's actually in the tutorial as well. And I sort of like that. This is something that for a lot of people, when you jump into a game, you may think, oh, I want to do the tutorial. I don't want to do the tutorial, whatever. And sometimes you just forget something or something's missed. And, you may not have the time, what have you. This game actually sort of organically does it by just the character reminding you need to pick up ammo on your way out and how you go about it. There's that door with the bug. I just love the graphics there. That bug just constantly powering up. Okay. Last thing we'll show is the running before I talk about docked performance, and I'll throw some canned footage in here. When it comes to the running, you hold the Y button down on the Switch. I can't remember what it was on the Xbox. And it is definitely an acquired taste. You do have to get accustomed to the way Stranger moves. He does have a different movement style to him. And then that changes again when you start running. And can I leap that? Oh, nope. I can't leap that. Let's see. I'm going to go around. All right, to finish this, I decided to go ahead and just play and look at some technical issues I was having with this in docked mode versus normal mode. So as I'm playing here, you'll just go ahead and hear me talking over the top of it. One of the things I want to mention is that docked mode really does have some FPS issues that crop up randomly. What's interesting, or maybe not so interesting, because we have seen this before, when it's in handheld mode, it really doesn't have any issues at all. It seems to work fine in handheld mode. I only had 1 or 2 drops, but I certainly have had drops here of the game. It is patched up that I can see, and I'm not 100% sure why that is. And they were happening at a sort of weird time, sometimes just moving forward, sometimes turning the camera. But again, in the docked mode, that did not happen. When it comes to the shooting, it feels fairly solid. It feels pretty much exactly the way the original felt. So I would say when the first person, I think and still think that this game really plays better in first person than third person almost all the way through. It does show that third person for the story elements, but I would tell you that if you were planning on getting this title, at least from what I've experienced, it still mimics the older title or the older version of this, which is it's probably best to play it in first person. It just feels better. Also, when it comes to the platforming and the jumping, it's not bad at all. I did have to adjust the sensitivity quite a few times, and I will tell you with the anti-aliasing, personally, I would say if you can deal with it off, it's probably best to be off. MSAA did seem to hit the FPS a lot, and FXAA just too blurry for me. It's just not something I could deal with. Also, you'll notice a couple issues here with aiming. One of the things I noticed is the reticle changes color when you're over an enemy, but especially when hunting creatures, I noticed it was particularly difficult to actually dial in on the creatures in this game, and I don't remember the original version having that. But I do have to say, I can already feel that I'm just going to put this thing in first-person mode and go for it. I love the first-person mode in this. I love the creatures, and I love the organic way in which you can use these creatures to do different things. A lot of the boss battles have various different environmental areas in which you can lead bad guys, including the bosses, directly into and sort of shortchange those battles. In closing, I'd say you just have to know what to expect from a game like this. It is a very old title. It's just ported to the system of your choice, maybe, if you have a Switch and you didn't get to play the original. One of the things everybody forgets is like, why didn't you just play this on the original system? Some people weren't friggin' alive at that point. So the ability to get to enjoy this on a current system that they may have is a boon. And I will say, handheld, this looks pretty damn nice and is pretty slick, especially, like I said, dock mode has a couple issues technically. So anyway, those are my thoughts so far with what I've got to play. Hope you guys like these videos. I'll try to do more of them when I get a chance, and when I don't get to cover a game all the way through, but just my initial thoughts. Again, this is not a review. This is just my initial thoughts and my initial ideas about the title. If you get a chance, give it a thumbs up. I would love for you to do that. Spread the video around. If you dislike the video, give it a thumbs down. Make sure to check out all of the various places you can find me and people on the channel. ACG on Anchor, iTunes, and of course Spotify. And last, become a patron. It absolutely helps, guys. Things just get demonetized all the time now. Whether they're demonetized right away or later on or some stupid copyright thing, patrons absolutely help for me to be able to cover more games and not just every 8 days do a review or something like that, but the ability for me to do some reviews and do stuff like this. And that's definitely something that the patrons get to do. Anyway, that's it for me. Peace out and enjoy the rest of your week.
So, which button activates the timer again? The blue one. You sure? I thought it was the green one. Look, I'm telling you, it's the blue one. Okay, jeez. I'll push the green one. Oh no, you idiot!